Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Where have I been? I know I've been MIA from this channel for like a month. Why have I been missing? Holy Spirit, please help me. I have been running back to certain sins in my life that I knew God has delivered me out of, and like a dog returns to their vomit, I went back to certain sins, certain things that I didn't have to go back to, but I felt like I was at a time in my life where I just felt so out of control. I felt like I began to rebel against God because of that. And because I was in that season and in that space, it just didn't feel right for me to come before you guys. And I just didn't know. I didn't know what was going on with me. I didn't know how to put it into words. I didn't know what was going to happen next. I didn't know what God was doing. Everything was just very hard and confusing. And I didn't want to come before you guys without some answers, without Amaya, what's going on, so you can communicate that to your subscribers. So now that I feel like I'm in a better place, I know now that I still need to show up even when I'm struggling. I still need to keep showing up because this channel, it keeps me accountable, because it's hard for me to stay in sin when I'm talking to you guys. I started off this year so strong. As you guys know, I started this channel in January. Before that, like 3 months before January, I was just different. I was so on fire, and January came, February came, and everything was just going good. But by the beginning of March, I began to burn out. I began to slow down and lose momentum, and I realized it was because I wasn't recharging in the word. So you can pull all the weeds up, but if nothing's planted, you're not going to reap a harvest. So I was pulling up all these sins out of my life. I was like, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do this. But I wasn't sowing the seed of the word, of prayer, of worship in my life. What that caused was severe burnout. I got completely overrun by spiritual warfare. I'm telling you, I felt like a heaviness came over me, and I was not in my word. I didn't have an intentional prayer life the way I wanted to. Like, I pray throughout the day, I'm always talking to God, but sitting down with just me and my Bible, the word, and just the voice of God, and just praying in that way, I wasn't doing that. And I feel like once you take on a challenge or an assignment for God, for me it's this channel, it's like you're sharing a burden with Christ, and you can't be passive. You have to be active in stewarding what God has given you. And I felt like I had become very passive. When I feel far away from God, there's nothing for me to talk to you guys about. There's nothing for me to sit here and discuss, because everything that I speak about comes directly out of the overflow of my relationship with God, out of my heart for God. And so I abandoned this channel, and every day that I was gone, I thought about you guys. Sometimes I would cry about you guys. I would just think, like, I miss everyone. I miss responding to comments. I miss connecting with you guys and relating to you guys. And some of you guys have found me on TikTok and Instagram, and we've connected on those places, because those are easier, quicker platforms for me to like produce content on versus a video, like a sit down video. And I usually like to put these out in a better quality with my camera, with light and all that stuff. And I've been kind of feeling like at some point I'm going to experiment with not making my videos so formal. But as for now, I just want to make sure that I'm producing my best as we're getting to know each other. I don't know if you guys know, but I've been experiencing severe unemployment. I graduated college last May. I had a few credits to finish up, and that was really hard after my graduation. But I started job hunting in October of last year, and I've not been able to find a job. I've applied to 700 jobs on LinkedIn, over 300 on Indeed, and I've been working since I was 15, so my resume is very stacked with retail experience, serving experience, administrative experience. I've done volunteering and internships, and I've worked for a nonprofit. I've done so many different things, and it just has not been enough. I've reworked my resume so many times, and I've not been able to get a job until I was. So I did end up getting a job, and I only had that job for about 2 or 3 weeks, and I left it. I felt like me getting that job was a direct reflection of how little I trusted God. I knew I shouldn't have took that job, but I did anyway. And once I did take it, I was like, oh, all my problems are solved. I don't have to feel like I'm relying on God so much or other people so much. Like, this is what I've been waiting for. But I had to leave that job. The woman that I worked for, it became a very emotionally turbulent situation for me. I was crying every day. it just wasn't great. And so what I took out of that experience was God was kind of telling me, he showed and illustrated to the Israelites, is if you refuse to trust me, serve me, humble yourself before me, I will give you up to rulers that are much wickeder and harsher than you perceive me to be. Like, if you think it's hard following me, it's gonna be much harder following them, because these people are cruel and I'm not. I was like, God, I tried to do things my own way. I tried to find my own means of stability. It led me into the hands of someone who was actually so harsh. And so I had to leave that job. And it was the first time in my life I'd ever left a job without a 2-week notice. The first time in my life I ever walked out of a job. And I'm not condoning that. I'm not saying that's right, but that's what happened. And I had prayed. The day I walked out, I prayed right before I went in, and I cried and I just said, God, help me. And in the moment, as me and her were like, you know, she's coming for me and I'm like trying to defend myself and things like that, I remember thinking in my head, like, Lord, what should I do? And I remember I just felt like God was telling me it's only going to get worse from here. So if you stay, I'll be with you. If you go, I'll be with you. But either way, you're going to have to trust me. And I was like, I'm going to go and trust you. And I walked out of there I felt so free. To this day, I'm so happy I left that job. It was actually so hard, but my life became hard. After that, it became hard because now I'm dealing with even less money. This was the first job I had in months, and now it's gone. And I do have a part-time nanny job. By the grace of God, I nanny for a woman in my neighborhood. I get like a few $100s a month off of that. But it's been really hard trusting God through this season of unemployment. I was so used to putting my resume through, getting hired by something immediately. This is the first time in my life, in my 10 years of work experience, that I have sent my resume out hundreds and hundreds of times, and I've gotten a few interviews, even less in-person interviews, and none lately. I found myself realizing that what I'm living in is a direct consequence of a lot of my actions, yes. I realized that disobedience has led me to this place, yes. But I also have found myself wondering if God has given up on me. Does he have a plan for me? What's he doing in my life? When will I see any change? What's going to happen next? And I think those questions are what led me into backsliding. I looked at sins that I used to find comfort in, and I was like, you know what? This is just what I'm gonna do for now. But the worst part is that because the Holy Spirit lives in me, because I've been delivered from these things, there was no satisfaction or gratification. I felt really empty and dark and used by myself. Because thank God none of the sins I'm talking about involve another person. Mostly sins within myself. I just struggled for a while. I struggled, and I just wanted to tell you guys this. So at the beginning of March, I knew I was hearing God call for a reset. I just kept hearing the words reset, reset, reset. I knew God was telling me to fast. We talked about how I believe this is my Esther year. I know a lot of you guys believe this is your Esther year as well, that we're in this waiting season of obedience and preparation. And I felt like God was telling me time to reset, and I didn't. I knew I was supposed to fast. I didn't fast, and I literally don't know why it's so hard for me to listen, because if I had listened to God, I doubt I would have experienced the backsliding that I experienced for this past month. And especially there were certain shows that I started watching that, you know, shows that had gotten renewed, shows I've been waiting for the next season. And I realized pretty quickly, these shows, so maybe they're graphic or there's a lot of this, a lot of that. But I was like, I can't miss out on this experience of this show. But in doing that, I kind of forfeited a lot of my spiritual growth and progress, because it affected my mind, and I wasn't renewing my mind in the word, and I was watching all these shows, and at the top of that I was doubting God. So I have all this doubt, all this lack of faith, and all of this carnality that I'm also adding to the equation, and it resulted in so much double-mindedness, so much backsliding, and just compromising. Honestly, I want to make a separate video. You guys let me know if that's what you want. It's hard for me to talk about certain things on here because I know, like, you have your family watching, your coworkers watching, everyone's like sometimes watching these videos. By the grace of God and for the benefit of other people, I don't mind sharing. So you guys let me know if you want a deeper dive onto some of the sins I've been struggling with and how I've been allowing God to help me. Already he's delivered me from them, but not return to my vomit, not return back to them. But I began to compromise because of that, and because of my lack of obedience, I was experiencing such strong delay, repercussions, and consequences of that. So that was a learning lesson. I think some of the key things that God is teaching me this year that I need to implement: resets, fasting, recharging in his word, in prayer, and in worship, and rest, surrendering to him, getting quiet and silent in the presence of God. So reset, rest, and recharging. So I'm like, we almost have to train like athletes sometimes when it comes to this walk with God. You have to take rest, time for rest. You have to rest. You have to recuperate. You have to get rejuvenated. You have to be recharged. God has to recharge you, especially if you're on the mission field. If you're working, if you're teaching, if you're preaching, if you're doing whatever you're doing for the Lord, if you're creating for Him, you need Him to recharge you and boot you back up for the next day. It's constantly coming to God with all of our needs. And I think a lot of times we focus on our physical needs. God, I need a job. God, I feel like I need a man or a spouse. God, I need friends. I need this, I need that. God knows everything that we need. He knows everything we need, and He will provide it for you. There are some things that you don't even realize you need spiritually, and you need to go and ask God for these things. You need to ask Him to give you the strength, to give you the joy, to give you the hope, to give you the faith. I know we're like, but I need a job. I don't really care about those other things. But I truly believe out of the overflow of having those key characteristics and foundations and fruit of your spirit, everything that else will just flow into your life. Because for me personally, I've been praying and asking God for a job. God has given me character instead. He's given me humility instead. He's torn down idols instead. He's helped me become more patient instead. I'm like, God, I don't understand. I asked for a job, instead you're breaking me apart. The truth is that I don't know what job God has coming for me, what He has in store for me, but maybe it's going to require all of these internal and intrinsic tools. Maybe it's going to require better character from me. But it's been really hard. I don't know if any of you guys have gone through an employment or gone through a season where God has you in a job that feels like torture. Like every day that I'm doing nannying, my patience is tested and tested and tested, to the point where I used to be like, oh, I can't wait to have kids, I can't wait to have kids. And I started doing daycare work last March. So it's been a year of doing part-time daycare work, but I stopped the daycare work last fall. So right before my job surge, I stopped daycare work and I started nannying work this year. It's been a reality check. Raising children, obviously I'm not raising anyone, but watching them be raised, helping in their raising is very difficult. And I knew that because I have a younger sister that lives with me, one that doesn't, but one that does. And I've been helping, watching, assisting in the raising of her for her whole 11 years of life. But I think I may have forgotten some things from when I was 13 to 24. And it's that it's such a sacrifice and it requires everything from you. And I feel like even my walk with God right now is requiring everything from me. God is requiring everything. He doesn't want anything to be, any part of me to be off limits or left out away from Him. He's requiring everything from me. I've been so willing to give it all, but I've not been receiving from Him the way I need to fill myself back up. And that has caused so much burnout. Christian burnout. I think that is the perfect word to sum up what I was experiencing. I got so burnt out and I got depressed again. I got really depressed and I got really low. And when we're low, if sin's crouching at your door, I'm sure it has a much easier time pouncing on you. And it's April now. What did I take from March? Obedience. And I told you guys, if this is our Esther year, we have to be operating in obedience and preparation. And I directly contradicted that, my own orders that I'd heard from myself and that I'd relayed to you guys, and you guys said same for us. I contradicted that almost immediately, and that was a humbling experience. So humbling. I realized that God really prioritizes obedience. And I made a video on my TikTok that said sometimes the cost of our blessing is our obedience. And I began to realize that the things that God has for me, He actually doesn't have to give to me. Everything God gives us out of His grace, right? But there are some things that do require obedience in order for us to have. Moses, after all of that time in the wilderness, leading those children of Israel, very disobedient, very quarrelsome and complaining people, through the wilderness to the promised land, because he beat the rock instead of spoke to it like God told him to do, God said, you will not enter into this promised land. I've thought about the story of Moses so much in the past month because I realized that God was trying to show me that there are things you might miss out on in this life because of your disobedience. Because of your lack of obedience, there are things that you could potentially miss out on. And that was scary. That was an eye-opener, because all that work and what did it get me? You know what I mean? Like, I always felt so bad for Moses. I was like, oh my gosh, he did all of that and he didn't get to see the promised land. He didn't get to go in, you know? I think he did get to see it, but he didn't get to go in. And I don't want my life to be where when God finally has a job for me, I get to see it, but I don't get to go into the job. You know, I don't want that when God finally brings the marriage or the husband, I get to see what could have been, but I don't get to experience or be in the marriage. I don't want to see other people with their children, but I never get to experience what it's like to be in motherhood. I don't want that, because a lot of people even talked to me about it, and they were like, more than just Moses' disobedience, it was his lack of trust in God. He knew that in the past, God had told him to strike the rock, but this time God was telling him to speak to it. So did Moses not trust, or did he not believe that what God was saying this time was what he meant, was what was actually going to bring water out of the rock? Did he not believe that? Did he not trust that? And also, Moses, the posture of his heart at that time was anger, and he needed to repent of that. So we have unrepentant sin coupled with a lack of trust with God, coupled with I know best. Guys, that perfectly sums up where I've been for the last month. And it's been really hard. It's been so hard, because I felt the weight of the words that I knew God had in my heart to say to you guys. I felt the weight of you guys wondering where I've been. I felt the weight of missing opportunities to fulfill my purpose and assignment through these videos, because I've always said you never know who's on the other side of your obedience. You guys have been on the other side of my obedience, and I'm so grateful for that. In my disobedience, I was realizing it wasn't just affecting me, but it's gonna affect you. I guess same how like so many things, even Moses, his actions didn't only affect him. So I tried to go on a fast. I tried to go on a 3-day fast this week, and I lasted 48 hours. When I asked God, why did I only last 48 hours? I believed God was telling me it's because my flesh has become a very strong and prominent figure in my life. That I've fed it and indulged it, and it's grown and it's become a beast to be reckoned with. That I can't even go 72 hours without breaking my fast, because all I could think about was food. I just could not stop thinking about food. I was so angry during that fast. I was so miserable. I was so weak. I was so tired. I was scrolling through social media. I wasn't even fasting the way I should, because my body, my mind, everything felt like it was rebelling. And that's when it finally clicked. When God told me to start fasting, he meant you need to start practicing this as a lifestyle, because your flesh, it does want to rule over you. And if you don't get it under control, it will. And it has. This past month, it has dealt with me so much. And that's scary, because like I was just saying, we all want the things we want, and we want them from God, not the world. But with God, it requires a certain level of obedience, because it's not just to him. It's not about you just having things. It's about your heart. It's about your relationship with him. So he needs you to understand how to practice obedience, because in that obedience comes reverence, comes intimacy, comes a holiness, because you are indulging in a mutual relationship with God, where you revere him and you are listening to him. God really does love obedience, and it really pleases him. And so he's more interested in how pleasing you are in his sight, and versus just what we have. So the benefit we reap is what we have, but the true benefit that we reap is our closeness and intimacy with God. The more obedient we are, and the more we learn to trust him, the more our faith grows, because we see him perform what he said he's going to perform in our lives. And we know my faith, like we just think about Abraham and Sarah. Abraham was obedient to take Isaac up there and sacrifice him if he needed to. Obviously God didn't require him to do that, but his obedience alone, you guys, his obedience alone showed God something. I don't know about you, but I want to show God something with my life. There's a verse in Hebrews that says, and Abraham went, not knowing where he was going. Guys, this life will be over in a blink, in a second. It will pass by so fast. I'm sorry. It'll pass by so fast, and then you'll have to stand in front of God. And thank God for the blood of Jesus that saves us. What you did on earth and what you didn't do will also be examined. And I don't want to miss out on anything more. I know I've probably missed out on some things already. I know I've probably been disobedient on some things already. I don't want to do that anymore. I'm going to be 25 this year. I don't know, maybe it's my frontal lobe developing. I don't know. But I want to mature. I want to grow. I no longer want to just be a girl. I want to be a woman of God. I know that I'm always going to be God's little girl. I'm always going to be a child to God. But in this world, I need to be a woman of God. I need to mature. I need to grow. I need to become the woman of God first before I know I can become a wife or a mom or any of the roles that God has for me. I have to grow, not just spiritually, but emotionally, mentally. That's going to require discipline. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but that is definitely rain. It's raining outside my window right now. I guess I'm gonna cut this video here. I don't even know what I'm gonna title it. I just wanted to give you guys an update. I don't even know if it's gonna get many views because it's more so directed to like the people who already watch me. But God is with us. He's helping with us and he's dealing with us. And I'm gonna talk some more about fasting because I believe it's so important. I'm gonna tell you guys what happened in the 2 days that I did fast and how that has brought a lot of mental clarity and blessings to my life. But that's it for now, guys. I'm not gonna promise anything, but my hope is that I'm gonna continue to be very consistent on this channel again, and I want you guys to keep an eye out for more videos coming very, very soon. I have so much to talk about. We have so many things to get into. So yeah, that's it for today's video. I love you guys. I'm praying for you guys, and I can't wait to talk to you guys and hear from you guys in the comments again. But that's it for now. Bye.